Welcome everyone to the December Council Ordinary Meeting. I'll just like to welcome everyone and wish all of us present a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year and a prosperous 2022, and let's hope that it's a lot better year in 23 than what we've just experienced. The reason I'm doing this at the start of the meeting rather than the closing is because usually we go into closed council and the gallery disappears, so I thought I'd take the advantage now. So I'll open the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate their continuing culture connection to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Mr General Manager, could read the prayer, please.
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our Richmond Valley community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Councillors, the next item is item 3, public access. By close-off time yesterday afternoon, when you have to register to address council, there had been no request. However, late or a bit after lunch today, we had a request from Ms Cindy Lusted. The Blaze Aid Rappel representatives requested to address council in relation to item 15.2, Blaze Aid contribution acknowledgement. Councillors, the General Manager cannot okay that. It's a code of meeting practice, so we'll need a resolution of council, and I just think it would be the Christmassy thing if I'll move that Ms Lusted is allowed to address council. Can I get a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. I don't think there's any need for the debate on that. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Ms Lusted, would you like to come forward, please? Yes, please.
Are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're very informal,
Yes.
so just take your time. You have 5 minutes. There will be a buzzer in after 4 to give you the last minute gong. So when you're ready, away you go.
Okay, so my name's Cindy Lusted and I'm a Blaze Aid volunteer. I'm here on behalf of many volunteers through Casino and Rapville. We would like, firstly, to thank RVC for hosting us for 3 years. I have to differ with that because it hasn't been 3 years. The first camp was opened on October the 20th, sorry, I'm a bit nervous, to March the 28th, 2020. Camp 2 was opened the 13th of January 21 to February 22. Camp 3 was opened on the 4th of March to this coming day now. So I have to differ with the 3 years. We have come from every corner of the country here, helping the farmers of the Richmond Valley and surrounds to rebuild their fences and restore their land so that once again they can buy stock and get back to feeding the country. We have had, we think, 2 years of continuous helping and healing of the Richmond Valley community. Out of 397 farms that were registered, many having to register for fire, then again for flood, and then again for flood again. Some farmers can't afford fencing or materials as their whole life has either been burnt or washed away. Blaze Aid has been one of many in the area assisting, not only with fencing but with passion and understanding and of their plight. We were given 3 months out at Rapville that we could stay, with the potential of another 3 months if we needed it. We do need more time, and we do need more volunteers to help with this task. We will now need a new venue to continue and complete our work. Hang on, lost my spot. Blaze Aid volunteers work 6 days a week, with Sundays their only day off. Blaze Aid has maintained the venues where we have been. In Casino, we mowed, we whippersnippered, we cleaned the toilets so that they were always clean for when another person comes in to use the toilets, like I think we had dancing, and also the karate people used to come in. So the toilets were always clean for these people. And the same with Rapville. We mow it, we whippersnip it, we clean it. And that's how we always are. With the release of the Richmond Valley Council announcement the other day, it says that Blaze Aid volunteers can go into New South Wales and help where are best needed. We are in New South Wales. We are helping farmers as they do need our help. If we can't find another venue, we will need to close our camp, which is not what we want to do. We pride ourselves in staying until the job is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is apologies. We're all present. Item 5 is the mayoral minute on page 6. I'll move that. Could I get a seconder, please?
Second, Mr.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, this is well, I'll read the recommendation for those who are viewing online. That Council extends its deep appreciation to all those who have worked tirelessly this year to support and rebuild the Richmond Valley community. Councillors, as we know, it has been a very difficult year, a very challenging year, and but out of that there has been, I think, a real lot of community coming together. As Mayor, I'm proud of how we've all rallied around each other. We've had a lot of outside help from a lot of people just from the street, from other Queensland and different areas, just coming to help us clean up, delivering food. It's not all from our own council area, it's right across the board, the state. We've had emergency services, the army, as I said, our community, and amongst all that we've had our staff who have done a wonderful job. And a lot of those staff have been flood affected themselves, and speaking from experience, and I know there's people in this room that experienced that flood, and it's not an easy time, not only when you're experiencing the actual event, but trying to recover from it. And this will take years, and it's emotionally sapping and physically draining. So I just thought that the councillors would like to join me in extending their appreciation and thank you to our community for what they've done and the outside help that we received over that time. Is there any other speakers? No? Well, I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Item 6 on page 7 is confirmation of the minutes, and it's for the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 15th of November 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Councillor Humphries, and a seconder.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. I'll put that motion on the accuracy of those minutes. No one got any? Okay, I'll put that motion in. Carried. Item 7 is a typo. It should be item 8, matters arising out of the minutes. Has any councillor got any matters arising from those minutes? The ordinary meeting in November.
Mr. Mayor, I believe this is where I would respond to a question from Councillor Deegan from the last meeting.
If it's from the previous meeting, yes.
Thank you. As I alluded to, during the flood recovery update 14.1, Councillor Deegan asked a question about the Bunga levy, which I took on notice from the last meeting. I'd like to follow up on that. I'd like to advise that Rouse has been working actively to repair the damaged levy and return it to its pre-flood condition. However, this has been hindered by wet conditions following the flood, availability of contractors to complete the work and access to the damaged sections of the levy. The section of the levee which runs close and adjacent to Bunga Creek has been returned to its pre-flood height, and Rouse is continuing to investigate solutions to the subsiding rock embankment at the location of the 2021 levee, and also will continue to pursue funding to maintain and improve the condition of the levee and look for solutions to reduce the impact of overtopping events when they occur.
Thank you. Any other matters arising? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Item 9 is declaration of interest. Has any councillors got declarations of interest? Mr General Manager, have you received any?
Yeah, I have. I've got 3. First one's Councillor Hayes in item 17.1. As is the applicant for the DA's pecuniary interest, and for that item, Councillor Hayes will leave the meeting. Second one is Angela Jones, our Director of Community Service Delivery, in the matter of 18.2, as a non-pecuniary insignificant conflict in that item. And other Director Benzella, for the matter of 20.4, has a non-pecuniary insignificant conflict. So I've received those 3.
Thank you. Item 10, petitions, there's nil. And a notice of motion on page 9 by Councillor Hayes. Would you like to move?
Yeah, thank you. Since I had that notice of motion published in today's business paper in the agenda, I've decided I'd like to withdraw it, if that's okay.
Yes.
And I'd like to replace it with a new notice of motion. If I can do that.
I think all councillors have been circulated with that.
Everyone's got a copy of it.
So you're moving that?
Yeah, I'd like to move that as written.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cornish. Councillor Hayes.
I just think this new notice of motion in place of the old one covers everything that I was trying to achieve with the other notice of motion. I think it gives a broader version of what we're doing with our water and our water security and our water supply network over the next few months of the coming year. And I think everything that I was trying to get addressed in that notice of motion will be addressed by this one, and probably in more detail and cover a lot more items than what I was asking for.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'd just like to support the notice of motion. I think it's the rationale behind it explains to our community where we're going in the future with our, especially the next 12 months, with our sewer and water. There's needs to be a lot of planning and work and design done on these issues, and it's going to come at a massive cost. I know there will be some government funding, but at the end of the day, they won't give us 100% funding. So I think this notice of motion will address that situation we find ourselves in coming into the future. Any other speakers? Right of reply, Councillor Hayes.
All good, thank you.
I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Councillors, page 10, Mayor's report. I'll move that. Can I get a second, please?
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Is there any questions or? No? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Delegates' reports, nil. Matters determined without debate. Has any councillors got any matters they'd like to call?
18.2.
17.1, I'll call that because it's a planning issue. Any other?
15.2.
15.2. Any other? Councillors, I'm going to call 15.1 because there has been a further update on that issue. Any other? Councillors, I'll just mention that 17.2, the community's sustainable community strategy. I'm happy to. It's a very important item, but it's just to go out to public consultation. So I'm happy that one to go straight through, and we'll debate it when it comes back from the public consultation. Okay, so I need a motion now to adopt 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 17.2. I'm sorry, we also need to call 18.1. That hadn't been called, has it? No, we need to call that. So we've got 17.2, 16.3, 16.2 and 16.1. Concur? Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Morrissey. Seconder, Councillor Cornish. Put that motion, all those in favour? Carried. So, councillors, that takes us to 15.1, page 13 on the agenda, with a recommendation on page 14. Mr General Manager, are you still happy with that recommendation? You don't want to update that, or further report come back later?
Yeah, I think given the status, obviously a judgment did come out yesterday, but it's being reviewed and will take some time as it's 275 pages. So I'd suggest that recommendation is still appropriate, and we'll bring a report back once that's been fully considered.
All right, I'll move that. Can I get a seconder, please?
Second.
Councillor Morrissey. I'll start off with an update from the General Manager, please.
Yeah, so councillors, as you are now aware, well, this report was finalised last Thursday. We've been waiting 12 months for the judgment in the class action that we led with the hearing in the New South Wales Supreme Court in November last year. So obviously it was appropriate to give you an update both on where that was up to and the expectation that we'd certainly hear the outcome in the first quarter of next year. But it was also an opportunity to outline some of the savings and financial benefits that our community have, or through obviously council's finances benefited due to what we've done over the last 5 years in changing insurers and asking lots of questions across the industry. We've done a fairly conservative estimate of that in this report, and over the last the time since we shifted back in 17-18 away from the previous mutual, statewide mutual, we've conservatively estimated we've saved 1.4 million in insurance premiums. On top of that, in moving to our current insurer, Civic Risk Mutual, we were able to benefit from the higher flood cover limit of $5 million, which has been paid out to obviously support our efforts to rebuild infrastructure and water sewer services and the other things that we need to fix. If we'd remained with the statewide mutual, we would have only received $2 million, as was the case for a couple of other councils in our region. So it was to highlight, I suppose, what we've achieved in changing insurers, getting a better deal, paying less in premiums, getting a better service. It's a far more transparent product as well. As far as, so that's, I suppose, an overview of that aspect of it. So the insurance class action, we were notified late on Friday that the judgment was to be handed down at 4 p.m. yesterday. That occurred. Unfortunately and very disappointingly, it didn't go in our favour. So the case against JLT Insurance, that they'd been overcharging us in premiums for a period of at least 6 years, but also as our broker, should have been giving us better advice and providing us with better outcomes. But the judge didn't quite see it that way. It's quite technical, but I won't say too much more because the judgment's being reviewed in detail. There's obviously a litigation funder involved here because there are no costs to council with this action, which had 20 other councils involved. So that will be reviewed, and obviously part of that review is a consideration of whether there is a case to appeal the judgment. So that will happen over the next month or so, and I'll obviously keep you informed, and when there's an outcome from that, come back to you with a further report.
Thank you. Councillors, I recall when this council made the decision, or previous council made the decision to go down the path of go out to tender, put expressions of interest out with some other councils, and it was a pretty big call. I remember in the room there was should we or shouldn't we, and a lot of doubt, but I think that decision's been proven. They're a very reputable organisation that we're with now, and to gain $5.4 million for our community, I think that justifies that decision. I know at some JO meetings, other mayors they've got the 2 million, we got the 5, so they're asking me a few questions. So I think it was well worth it. So, and I also think it's not only the dollars, it's a bit of I think you have to be seen to be doing the best for your community, not only financially but morally. And I really think that we were, not being looked after as well as we could have. Being polite. Any other speakers? No one? Don't need a right to reply. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. 15.2, Councillor Humphries.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to ask a question through you to the General Manager. And Cindy, I apologise, I didn't catch your surname. Cindy made the comment that there was an extension to the tenure at Ratville. Could I ask about that being a possibility?
Mr General Manager.
So I think what Ms Lusted was referring to was back in around September when there was obviously a need to vacate the casino showground. We'd been working with BlazeAid for quite a bit of time to find alternate locations. There were a number of locations talked about. It ended up that the Ratville Sports Ground was what was available, and ended up being accepted by BlazeAid. So the agreement was for 3 months initially. That was the time period that they felt they needed to, get through the work that they had registered at the time, which from the records we had around that, or the last update of details we had was around 90 jobs. So in those conversations, there was, if the facility was available and there was a need, there may be an opportunity to extend that by 3 months. So I think it was certainly wasn't a written agreement, but it was something that was talked about at the time. I'm not sure whether Director Jones has anything you want to add, given you were looking after that.
Director Jones.
Through you, Mr Mayor, what you've stated is correct. We have a booking at the Ratville Sports Ground that has been booked for probably about 12 months now. So there was a definite end date, and the moving past that end date was marginal, but we said we'd have a look at it. When it came clear that we couldn't extend that any further, contact was made with the BlazeAid CEO, and we've had those further discussions about not being able to extend that that's where we're at today.
Thanks very much, I appreciate that. I would like to say a few words. I do support the recommendation.
I need a mover.
Oh, sorry, I'm moving that recommendation.
Oh, second.
Councillor Hayes.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hayes. I am supporting the recommendation in its entirety. I acknowledge that the report, a large percentage of the report is praising the work from the Blaze Aid volunteers, and Cindy used the perfect word, and also healing the community during their time of need. This is a tough issue, and I'm sure, as happens in other communities, many Blaze Aid volunteers became like family during their time assisting our communities. I understand that it may be difficult for some members within our community, those who were helped out in times of need, times that seemed unsurmountable. Blaze Aid volunteers were there to help with compassion and hard-working hands. And also those in our community who volunteered alongside Blaze Aid volunteers. There's members of our community organisations who became friends with Blaze Aid volunteers. What a gorgeous man was Ron Spud Murphy. I know that the Casino Lions, and I believe that the Casino Rotary Clubs presented him with a special award in recognition for his service to our communities. Following the setup at the temporary camp at the Rapville Showgrounds, I'm sure that everybody understands and supports the request from the Rapville Showground Committee for their community to now have full access to their facility following the 21st of January. After assisting the Rapville community following the worst disaster in the area's history, I feel that it would be a source of pride for the Blaze Aid volunteers to see those whom they helped return to their family gatherings and their community events at the showgrounds, at the Rapville Showgrounds. And then I'd like to move on to the $10 million being spent at the Casino Showgrounds and the racecourse upgrade project. It's also important on so many levels to the community and the stakeholders and the users of the facility, and therefore it's important to maintain the momentum on the project. And it won't be available again until 2024. Blaze Aid's tenure expires on the 20th of January 2023, and a camp location with the necessary requirements has proved, well, difficult, impossible. The camps require kitchen, dining facilities, adequate electricity supply, toilets, showers and water, and one just simply hasn't been able to be identified. Our council has even appealed to neighbouring councils and were unsuccessful. The council and the community will be forever grateful for the mighty amount of physical work, the support and the compassion shown to not just the Richmond Valley, but our entire region. With the information to hand, I will be supporting the recommendation as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes.
So at this stage, they've got to vacate by the 20th of January, is that and they've got nowhere to go, nowhere locally. That's the, yeah. Is there anything in the wind, the Blaze Aid committee got anything, any ideas where they might head to that we know of?
The only suggestion that I've been made aware of was location in Coracai, formerly hockey fields, you may know of them. Not suitable, it's not set up for it. Amenities are not even connected at the moment, no power, so it's certainly a long way from obviously what Blaze Aid have had access to at both the Casino Showground and at the Rapville Sports Ground.
Any other speakers? Councillor Deegan.
Yeah, first of all, I guess I second the comments of Councillor Councillor Humphries around the outstanding work that Blaze Aid has done, and certainly over the last few days I've been contacted by a number of people about this issue, and I've really spent a lot of time looking at the report, trying to find out more information and investigate it. And initially I thought, oh, maybe I would try and add a point 3 or move an amendment that Blaze Aid be supported to stay in the community when you actually really dig into the recommendations, and the two recommendations are acknowledges the significant contribution of Blaze Aid in the community, and that's just a snapshot of it, and writes to the founder of Blaze Aid to thank them for the outstanding work they have done, and they have done absolutely outstanding work and can't be thanked enough. There's nothing in the report that says if Blaze Aid were able to find another location in the Richmond Valley that they wouldn't be supported to stay here, and let's hope that Blaze Aid can find another location so that they can continue with their work. So just on some of the contact I've had, I've scribbled a few notes here that I'll try to convert into questions for the General Manager. So around, were there council's been supporting Blaze Aid? Was there financial support from the state government? Is there an end date on that? I'll hopefully that's a question in itself.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Yes, the arrangements have been supported by Resilience New South Wales, who do fund support organisations, and we've certainly funded Blaze Aid throughout its time here. The current arrangements do conclude on the 20th of January. I'm pretty sure there is a requirement where that funding is provided, and obviously that's subject to Resilience continuing to do that, but that funding is generally provided through councils, and then we are required to upfront fund it. So we upfront fund the costs of a camp, and then we have to recoup through making applications back through Resilience. So that arrangement with Resilience is it finishes on 20th of January. So that would be, if there was a camp somewhere else in either the Richmond Valley or another council area in the Northern Rivers, it's obviously a conversation to have with Resilience New South Wales as to whether they're in a position to extend that support.
So I believe Blaze Aid doesn't just service the Richmond Valley, it services the Northern Rivers region. Have other councils been approached? Have they been able to offer any support to Blaze Aid to provide a venue? Richmond Valley Council's provided 2 venues. Have they been able to come to the party at all?
There's certainly been there was a lot of conversations back around the time when the need to vacate the casino showground was happening, both with Lismore and Kyogle, and I'm happy for you to add any others, Angela, if there are any. They were the main ones that we were, and I think it's sort of the Kyogle, Richmond Valley, Lismore area that have been beneficiaries of Blaze Aid's work. So we've certainly had those conversations with them. I'd have to say barriers tended to be put in place, as some councils are good at doing, and we weren't able to achieve an outcome in those other areas. So that's where we ended up, because certainly I think it's on the record that Rappville Sports Ground wasn't the preferred location for Blaze Aid back when they were vacating Casino Showground, but it became the last choice.
Okay, I'll try not to ask too many more questions, but just put some of the community concerns forward. So I think you mentioned when Blaze Aid were moving out to Rappville, there were 98 properties registered at that point. I guess if there are people still waiting, what alternatives might they have, or suggestions?
Well, look, obviously everyone's scenario will be different, but if, I suppose if your property was damaged in the bushfires, which as we all know were 3 years ago, that's a long period of time to not have fences on your property. So, it's obviously part of the Blaze Aid model is, you know, the farmer does need to provide certain aspects of the fencing, strainer posts and other bits. So there's a range of reasons, range of solutions. And look, Blaze Aid's an option, but I mean, the other thing we've got to keep in mind here is we do have fencing contractors in our area that we need to consider how long you provide a free service to people in a community. So that's another factor that we need to consider here. But I think there was 98 back when they moved to the casino showground in September. I think at the time, given there was 3 months, there were discussions at that time. I think it was a different camp coordinator than Miss Lusted at that time, was that let's focus on getting those done. So it would appear if the numbers are back up around 200, there's obviously been further registrations come in.
Yeah, and just one final question, just in terms of the Ratville Showground, while Blaze Aid's been there, I'm not on top of exactly the layout of the showground, have other activities been able to take place there, and are there other events that didn't go ahead because Blaze Aid were at that facility?
There's an event booked on the 21st of January. Just as an example, there may well have been an event there this Thursday if it was available, but it's not available. So the sports ground is a really important meeting place for the Ratville community, especially while they haven't had a Ratville Hall. It's not able to be occupied just yet, it's close. But the sports ground provides a facility for, they have dog trials events, rodeos, but they have family functions. They use the space, the canteen, the facilities. So obviously Ratville is a community that was impacted by bushfires, was then had to, like everyone did, work through COVID and the impact that had on our ability to gather as communities. So we have obviously been engaging with that community, as we have with all of our communities, specifically around flood recovery, and the strong feedback we're getting from both the Ratville Sports Ground Committee but also members of that community is it's time for that facility to be back available because it's an important part of that community. So that's the feedback we are getting strongly from people in that community who we've been dealing with very closely, in particular since the bushfires.
Thank you for those answers. I hope that answers some of the questions that people in the community have. And looking really closely at the recommendation to acknowledge and thank Blaze Aid, I would find it very difficult to vote against that, and I certainly hope Blaze Aid are able to find another location in the local area and that we can continue to support them if they do.
Any other speakers? Councillors, after the bushfires, I had a lot of association with Blaze Aid. I got to know there was 4 or 5 camp coordinators, including Spud. But I got on very well, and I had a good association with Blaze Aid. In December 2019, I actually didn't have lunch with my family. I have 20 Blaze Aid volunteers who did not return back to their homes, and I had lunch with them, Christmas lunch with them at the golf club. I also helped them for a couple of days, or a day and a half it was, repair there was a resident out at Ratville who we had our community meetings, and she was very upset because the fence at the cemetery had burnt and the cattle were getting in on the graves, and she had a loved one there. So I mentioned that to the Blaze Aid, and I actually went out for a day and a half and helped them fix those fences. So I understand what Blaze Aid does, and they have supported our community in not only fixing fences, they done some work at the War Memorial at Rappville. They also, when they had the casino stampede, I think his name was Ron or Rob, he had his own tractor over at the showground and he slashed all that and made it all presentable. So they've been really great friends of our community. But I think it's time, as the report says, that we need the sports ground for the Rappville community. And the other night when I was out lighting the Christmas tree, I actually just asked a couple of the long-standing residents there, and they just said they'd like their sports ground back. So there are issues with the power there. It hasn't really short on power, and it was on a temporary basis. So they were fully aware when they went there that that day would come. The other thing I would like to, and I don't think we need to include it in the recommendation, but I'd like to see if we could try to find somewhere for them to move to. I know we've been around that a couple of times, but if the staff, Mr. General Manager, could have another look into that. It may not be achievable, but I think we need to do our best to see if we can retain them there, at least till around these 100 farms are done. But if we can't, well, I'd just like to publicly thank them. As I said, I know what they do and how they go about it, and they have been wonderful for our community. So thanks, Blaze Aid, for your contribution when we were down on our knees. It's much appreciated. Any other speakers? Councillor Humphries for the right of reply.
No, thank you.
I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. (17.1). I'll move that. And Councillor Hayes, you just go into the side room there, please. Seconder, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, I agree with the recommendation. It's not imposing on anyone's shadow or with a close house to them, or it won't look out of place. It's set back off the road. But the reason I called it is, it's, as we know, under the Local Government Act, you must call planning issues, and that's the reason I've called it. So, any other speakers? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour. Sam, could you give Robert a call, please? Sorry, Councillor Cornish. Councillors, we're now on page 32, Leeville Hall. I'll move that. Seconder.
Second, Mr.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, this is a pretty hard decision to take an asset away from our community. The hall's been there for many decades, a long, long time. And in the early days it was used, as the report says, but that usage has fallen away. But there's a couple of issues in the report that, to me, really ring some bells. And part of that's on page 32, the part of the recommendation 3 concedes that the Leeville Hall is no longer a viable facility at this location due to the issues noted in item 2 above. But if you go over to page 35, any rebuild would need to demonstrate compliance with modern development standards, including toilet facilities and effluent management, side access and parking and appropriate access for people with disabilities. Councillors, I've been out there 3 times since this hall's been damaged. The first time was with Councillor Morrison, and I was over at the showground, so we went out and had a look at it. It's very, very badly damaged. The other time was I went with Councillor Hayes to get some building expertise and his opinion, and I went out there today just to have a look that I wasn't missing something. I'm not making this decision lightly, but one thing that really sticks out to me when you go there is when the hall was built, it most probably would have been horse and cart, might have even gone through the gully, the creek there, and now it's and then I can remember the old Ratley Hildebrands Bridge, and now the new bridge that's there. The traffic goes along there at 80 to 90 to 100 kilometres an hour. You come up off the low area and you have to stick your nose out onto the road to see what's coming down. The access for traffic is very, very dangerous. The other thing on page 35, it's the inability for council to obtain insurance coverage for a building reconstructed within the floodway. This is a floodway. It's flooded once. It could cost to repair it correctly over $500,000. And if we can't get an insurance in that, that's not great decision making. And I think the community would expect more to look after their money, because we'd be up for another $500,000 there. And then on page 34, subsequent assessment of this site has been completed using Council's flood functioning map, which identifies the site as a floodway, with the resultant damage from the 2022 flood being an obvious consequence of this location. The risk of rebuilding in this location is high, and it is unlikely the proposal would secure development consent under modern assessment standards. Additionally, given the constrained nature of the site and its proximity to the waterway, it may not be possible to design an effluent treatment system for the facility that is compliant. So I just think it's beyond repairing, and the building itself, if anyone's had a look at it, it's in a real sad state. So it's disappointing that we have to do that, but I notice that part 4 of the recommendation does authorise the General Manager to also have discussions with the members for the new committee on potential future suitable uses of the site to reflect the history of the Leeville Hall. And I'll just, it's still a very dangerous access, but I'll open it up for debate if any other council would like to speak. Councillor Humphries.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple of comments. Again, this is another particularly difficult matter, because as you alluded to, Mr Mayor, councils work to provide their communities with facilities and opportunities. In the recommendation, part 3, the officer responsible, Andrew Leach, for the report, Andrew uses the word concedes, and I feel like that's just the perfect word to use there. That council concedes that the Leeville Hall is no longer a viable facility. None of us want this hall to go. We've really agonised over it. We've looked and searched, but with the detail of the report and over $500,000, there is no choice. I would have loved to have been able to have supported the newly formed Leeville Hall Committee and given them the opportunity to work their magic and bring the hall back to life. I'm sincerely disappointed to be supporting this recommendation. However, it is the right course of action. And I do look forward, as the report says, I do look forward to Council having conversations with the committee around what future suitable uses on the site might be able to occur. And again, I certainly think a feature to reflect the history of the Leeville Hall would be an important aspect. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Deegan?
Yeah, I guess I'll just agree with the comments that have been made so far, and really acknowledge the committee who stepped up to try to find solutions and a path forward. I think we all empathise or with the people of the Leeville community. It's an asset that's over 100 years old. In my short time on council, it's probably the most difficult decision I've had to make, because we don't want to lose a community asset such as this. But point two notes the proposal to rebuild the facility is unlikely to secure development consent due to the location on the floodway. Yeah, well, that basically, that's the reality. Let's hope some alternatives can be found for the local community.
Any other speakers? Well, just in closing, I'd really like to congratulate and thank the new Leeville Hall Committee for taking an interest in an asset in their area. And as we're aware of, at one of our information sessions, a member of that committee came and addressed council, and she was very passionate, and I understand why. But it's unfortunate that we just can't go back and repair this hall. So I'm looking forward to the outcomes of the General Manager's discussion with members of that committee. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. 18.2, Councillor Hayes.
I'd just like to move the recommendation as written in the business paper.
Second.
Who was the second? Councillor Cornish. Thank you. Councillor Hayes.
This has been ongoing for a long time now, and we've come to a decision, and we're about to make a decision. And look, I can fully support parts 1, 2, 3 and 6 of the recommendation. I've agonised over part 4 and part 5, and even to this point in time, I'm still having thoughts about the content of those two items. Okay, I think the percentage we've got in there of 0.02% is very generous, and I think that there would be good argument to increase that anything up to 0.03. I think when you go through that report, and that shows clear comparisons in that report shows clear comparisons between the NRLX and complexes at Tamworth, Mortlake and Kokar, and all have comparable input numbers. Okay, when you average out the percentage that they're charging, it comes out about 0.028%. I think our 0.02% is going to be the cheapest when you compare to other facilities, and if that's the way council want to go, I support it. There would be good argument to go higher, but maybe not at this point in time. The other one is part 5, which is the agency licence agreements and the amount. I was tending to think, why should we have to put a limit on them? I think they could be, over the years, there could be good submissions come in for different agencies to use the facility, and if we limit it, we've cut them off. But I can go with that for the next 3 years until it comes to council again. So at this point in time, I'm going to support the motion, the recommendation. Sorry.
Any other speakers? No, I'll just follow up on a couple of points that Councillor Hayes made. Yes, when you look at page 39, you'll see the rate and the percentages. This will be most probably the lowest. And as we know, some councillors have raised that before, but the staff are of the belief that 0.2 is an achievable, workable figure. So I'll be supporting that. I think that in 3 years' time, when I think it's the licence for 3 years, that may be revisited by a future council. But if it is successful and working, there would be no need to change it. I have I just think that it's a $210 million turnover out there in stock. And the community needs to have confidence that being a public asset, but it is for financial and commercial gain, that council is managing to an acceptable standard, and we owe our community that. It's a big business, and I think council needs to have more say in it, and this motion will bring this to fruition. There's just page 37, the key priorities within the business plan are a review of the agent licence agreements and a transition to a modern licence agreement with an increased focus on behaviours and values, WHS, biosecurity, transport chain of responsibility, branding and marketing. So there's a lot to sale yards, and compliance with government standards is a really big thing now. And I noticed there was something there with some in Western Australia. There was a some recent lease renewal attracting the attention of and involvement of the ACCC for competition concerns. So when we go to our expression of interest, there will be rules and regulations that the people who put in expression, or the companies that put in expression into, will have to abide by, and councillors will need to stay right out of that process because there are rules and regulations. It's just like any other expression of interest that council puts out to our community. We can't get involved in it. That is operational issue. So I'm just making councillors aware of that, just in case something comes back to bite that councillor. That's about me. Is there any... just one thing I'd like to get clarified, because I don't know how this will work, and it's about after the expression of interest process. These new fees will be offset by savings from operational processes that agents will no longer be required to manage and fund. Additionally, and in response to feedback from vendors, measures will be included in the new agent licence agreement to require transparency in what fees are passed on to vendors. Could you give us an explanation of that, please, Mr. General Manager?
Director Zeller can look after that.
Just on the first point regarding the operational processes, those are purely on the table at the moment. We've included the fees that go along with that in the revenue policy as a just in case if we decide operationally to go in that direction next year. So pretty much that is some of the functions that the agents run now. They will obviously not have to do that anymore. We'll get a saving on that. That's what that paragraph means. So with regards to the second point with the agent licence agreements and the transparency, we just wanted to build into that agreement a way that it was totally clear to the vendors what was a council fee and what was an agent's fee. So we would want that itemised on the invoices.
Thank you. The other thing that Councillor Hayes raised was about a lot more agents. If you go on to page 38, and you'll see that Carcore there has got 13 agents, but head per agent, the average head per agent is only 8,000. I think some of those agents would be only part-time operators. I couldn't imagine them making big income out of those. So I think we're looking at 7, that's correct? And I think 7's about the number to give everyone a reasonable return. Sometimes it will be a good return because some agents will have more cattle than others. And I notice there is 5 agents presently out there. Have we got any local content in our expression of interest? I'm not saying they get up a walk-up start. Nobody can do that under expression of interest, but I just want to know if there is a local content in that.
That'll certainly be a criteria that the evaluation panel will look at.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, just like to close up by the operational process that you talk about, Ben, that'll be clear cut, that when we get a feedback from any agent that uses out there, we can see where all the fees are going, and that agents' fees are agents' fees and council fees are council fees, and we can tell if there's any passing of fees from agents to vendors. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that'll be backed up by the licence agreement.
Okay, thank you.
That was a question. If you want to close, any other speakers? Do you want to close?
I think this recommendation goes a long way to bringing the complex up to a professional standard, and sees it go into the future as a business, and can be run as a business managed by council, with the users out there going about their daily business of selling the stock.
Okay.
Pretty simple. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. I believe we're on page 42, general, 19, general business, there's nil. And then page 43, matters for information. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Morrissey, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Humphreys. Would any councillor got any matters for information they'd like to raise? No? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. We're on page 65, item 21. Questions on notice nil. Questions for the next meeting in writing. Has any councillor got a question for the next meeting in writing in February? No, we'll move on then. Matter referred to closed council on page 66. I need a motion to go into closed committee, please. Councillor Morrissey, seconder.
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Hayes. Mr General Manager, has there been any written representation made regarding this meeting going into closed council?
No, nothing received.
Are there any verbal representations from the members of the public? No. I'll put that motion and all those in favour? Carried.
Thanks, Sharon.
could you read the resolutions of closed council, please?
Happy for Director Gator to do that. Thanks.
Resolved in Report 23.1 Water Restrictors. Resolved that Council receives and notes the results of the installation of water restrictors for the purpose of debt collection on properties. On item 23.2, write-off under financial hardship provisions. Resolved that Council approves the financial hardship provisions outlined in option 2 of this report for the property ID P115365.
Done? Well, I'll just wish everyone a Merry Christmas, I did earlier, and reiterate that, and thank you for the year. It's been, as I said, a pretty hard one, but I think we've come out of it the best we can. There's a lot of work to do, so thank you very much, and I'll close the meeting.